So I read this book, The Diary of a CEO, The 33 Laws of Business and Life. This book is so good I want to share with you the 7 laws of self-growth I learned that is changing my life. I hope you find this useful. Welcome to Being Human. So this book is divided into 4 pillars. Pillar 1, the self. It gives advice and principles for life you have to follow if you want to be the greatest version of yourself. Pillar 2, the story. Laws on how to be a compelling storyteller, which is very important to connect and sell. 3, the philosophy. It's all about our philosophy towards life, how we deal with things, how we approach situations, and how we overcome them. The 4th, the team. How to build and run a great team. In this video, we are going to focus on the first pillar, which is the self. And this pillar is made up of 7 laws. The first law, fill your 5 buckets in the right order. And it says filling these 5 buckets will determine how big, believable and achievable your dreams are to you and to those around you. And the 5 buckets are: 1, what you know, that is your knowledge. 2, what you can do, that is your skills. 3, who you know, that is your network. 4, what you have, that is your resources. And 5, what the world thinks of you, which is your reputation. These are the 5 buckets you have to fill if you want to be successful in your profession. And the crucial part is, you have to fill this bucket chronologically. Bucket 1, which is your knowledge. You acquire knowledge by going to school, universities, self-studies, or maybe by apprenticeship when you go to learn something from somebody. That is you acquiring knowledge. After acquiring this knowledge, when you apply this knowledge in your place of work, then you call it skills. With your knowledge and skills, you start creating your network because you are valuable. You start attending meetings, going for seminars, going for conferences, being in board meetings because you are valuable and you have something to offer. With this network you've created comes your access to resources. And finally, your reputation, which comes from your knowledge, your skills, your network, and your resources. If all of these are good, people start recommending you to their friends, to others, for you to work with them, or they want to work with you all the time because you have a good reputation. This law helps you in your decision making when you're looking to get a job in your profession. Let's say you're starting out young and you're beginning your career. With this law, it is advisable for you to choose a job that you're going to learn the most out of it instead of going for a high-paying job that you won't learn anything. And he goes further to say that the first 2 buckets, which is knowledge and skills, are the most important buckets you have to fill. Because in case of a professional earthquake, as he calls it, maybe something happens with your job and you lose your job. So you get to lose your reputation, you lose your network, you lose your resources, but you cannot lose your skills and your knowledge. Skills and knowledge can never be taken away from you, so you should prioritize these 2 things. So if you fill your buckets in the right order, it's like building the strong foundation for your house. But if you don't fill these buckets in the right way, your foundation is very weak. If anything happens to you, maybe say you lose your job, you lose your reputation, you lose your network, you don't know how to build upon these things because you don't have enough knowledge and you don't have enough skills that you can bounce back. The second law, to master it, you must create an obligation to teach. The only way for you to be good at something is for you to have skin in the game. Reading about it won't make you good. Watching videos or tutorials online won't make you good at it. As the saying goes, to learn something, read about it. To understand something, write about it. To master something, teach it. And the best way to teach is for you to go public. This is so true because publishing your work publicly forces you to learn faster and to improve your skills in that particular thing. I, for one, when I started releasing my podcast episodes every week, that forced me to learn a lot, to improve my speaking skills and to articulate my thoughts. So if you're complaining about the fact that you don't know a particular set of skills, it could be singing, dancing, or a particular sport, the only way for you to be good at it or to master it is for you to practice it consistently and do it publicly. It doesn't mean that you have to go out and tell everybody. You can create a WhatsApp group or a Facebook group or anywhere that you can share what you're doing publicly so that people can actually see it and give you feedback on what you're doing. That's the easiest and the fastest way for you to learn that particular skill. And to take it one step further, you have to look for someone that you're going to teach, because teaching forces you to break down that concept into the simplest idea so that you can teach it to someone that has no knowledge about it, hence making you understand it better and be a master at it. It's like the mentor, peer and mentee relationship, where you need someone that is above you to mentor you, to teach you what you need to know to be good at that skill. Then you need someone at the same level that is your peer, where you get to exchange ideas with the person, you exchange experiences and you learn together. And the last one, which is the mentee, you need to teach someone what you have learned so that it sticks in your head more. Steven Bartlett goes further in his book to say that you don't become a master because you are able to retain knowledge. You become a master when you are able to release it. The third law, you must never disagree. As humans, one thing that makes us thrive is our ability to create relationships, to work together for the common good. And in every relationship, communication is the key. This communication is both the problem and the solution, because in every relationship, conflicts are inevitable. These conflicts will either strengthen the relationships or break it. Healthy conflicts strengthen relationships because those involved are working against the problem, while unhealthy conflicts weaken relationships because those involved are working against each other. It doesn't matter if you have the facts and the figures to prove your point. The moment you start expressing your point with disagreement, the person on the other side will block the mind and become very defensive, hence making it difficult for you to pass across your point or to convince the person about your point of view. So instead of starting with a disagreement, you can look for a common ground, a point in the conversation where you both can agree on something. That's where you start on. In a nutshell, the best way to convince somebody in a conversation is first, listen to make the person feel heard, then respond in a manner that makes the person feel understood. This automatically gives room for a healthy conversation which makes the other person open and receptive to your point of view. The fourth law, you do not get to choose what you believe. Honestly, when I read the title of this law, I was like, what do you mean by we don't get to choose our beliefs? But after going through this law, I understood what he meant. And what I got from it was the fact that there are two forces that influence our beliefs. The first force, authority figures. Kids that grow up from a family that took religion very seriously, they believe that God is real and God is the source of everything. So they don't question that because they're very young, growing up. And at some point they get older, they start questioning all these beliefs about God and religion and why this was that and why the Bible is this. They start looking for their own evidence to prove that there is God. And if they find it, then they believe more in God because of that evidence they have and the experience they have gone through to prove that there is God. But if they don't find the evidence or something that is convincing enough, they will drop the belief in God and move on. Unlike the kids that grew up in a family that didn't know God or didn't take religion very seriously, they didn't have the need to believe in God because the authority figures around them didn't believe in God. So at some point when they get older, they will start looking for evidence to prove that there is no God, or they may not even look for it at all, and they may have an encounter with God. Then their belief is going to change and they start believing in God because of the encounter they had and the evidence they have to show that there is God. The second force, which is first party evidence from our five senses. This is grounded in the phrase that seeing is believing. Also, the beliefs formed from these experiences are very strong for us to get rid of. The fifth law, you must learn to lean in bizarre behavior. He says there are two types of people: those who lean in to new changes and adapt, and those who lean out of new changes and get left behind. Leaning out is being so arrogantly sure that you are right that you refuse to listen, learn and pay attention to new information. The lesson I learned from here is that there are a lot of things that we reject without taking the time to understand, to learn about them. Maybe because we are so set in our old ways that we don't want to change, or we are so lazy to pick up ourselves and adapt to the new ways. Instead, we have to learn to lean in. Anything that is unusual, something we don't understand, something that challenges our intelligence, we have to lean in. Leaning in is all about being open, ready to understand every new thing that comes your way. Be flexible and adapt to it. Even when you might feel stupid, you have to lean in. Even when it feels bizarre, lean in. Try to understand, adapt and change. If it doesn't work out for you, fine and good. At least you fully understand what you're rejecting or what you don't want. I for one have learned to lean into new ideas, new experiences, be open-minded, even to those conversations or things that may challenge my intelligence or my belief. I still give it a chance to understand. I take the time to understand where the person is coming from, the concept of the person and why the person is thinking that way. Maybe if I understand it, I can get the person's point of view and it can change mine if it's what I want, and I move on. It can be very uncomfortable to lean in, to adapt to changes, to get to understand another person's point of view. but that's the only way to change and grow so that you are not left behind. You have to be ready to take risks, try out new things, leave your comfort zone and experiment, do new things and try to see if it's good for you or not. Because taking no risk will be your biggest risk. You have to risk failure to succeed. You have to risk heartbreak to love. You have to risk criticism to be applauded. You have to risk the ordinary to achieve the extraordinary. If you live avoiding risk, you are risking missing out of life. Law number 6. Ask, don't tell. The question behavioral effect. Asking the right question is the best and easiest way to change your behavior, to understand yourself, to overcome your fears, and ultimately to convince someone. For a long time I've wanted to be a content creator, to put out content maybe on Instagram, on Facebook or YouTube. But I was so scared of a lot of things. I was scared of failing. I was scared of being laughed at. I was scared of being different. I was scared of a lot of things that sometimes I could not even understand why I was scared. But then I came across one of Tim Ferriss's TED Talk about defining your fears. The TED Talk was just a bunch of powerful questions you get to ask yourself to make you face your fears and realize that those things you're afraid of aren't that bad. As Seneca says, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. You see, asking those questions to myself changed my view about my fears and made me to start creating content. Mind you, I've had this thought of creating content for a long time, but it took me the right questions to figure out why I'm afraid to produce the content. And when I figured that out, I realized it wasn't that bad. Hence, I went on to start creating content. Another powerful thing about asking questions is that asking is better than telling when it comes to influencing someone's behavior. And this is even more powerful when the question you ask requires just a yes or no answer. For instance, the American president Ronald Reagan in 1980 ran for presidency, and in his last debate, he was given the opportunity to talk to the Americans. He asked the Americans a set of well-crafted questions that influenced them to vote for him as the president. He asked, "Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? Is it easier for you to buy things today than it was 4 years ago? Is there more or less employment today than it was 4 years ago?" These questions were well crafted because it required just a yes or no answer. If it was yes, they were more likely to vote for him, and if it was no, they were more likely not to vote for him. He didn't need to start preaching to them about the situation or the circumstances that the country was in. He just simply asked them the questions and for them to realize that things were not as good as they thought, hence influencing them to vote for him as the president. So, just like President Ronald Reagan, when the facts are on your side, there is no need for you to start preaching or showing proofs or bringing evidence. No. There is no need for that. The only thing you have to do is craft your questions in a way that it requires a yes or no answer. And the yes being that it's in favor of what you want, and no is not in favor of it. So when you ask that person a question that requires just a yes or no answer, it gives the person the time to think and make the decision for his or herself. Then if the answer is yes, they are more likely to see in your point of view. But if it is no, they are more likely to disagree with you. Law 7. Never compromise your self-story. This law is one of the most profound laws I read in this book so far. Your self-story. For instance, when you set the alarm, you're going to wake up at 6 a.m. in the morning, and at 6 a.m. the alarm goes off. You wake up and you touch the snooze button. You sleep for the next 1 hour, you wake up at 7 or 8. They may seem very little, but these are first-party evidence you are collecting for yourself and your story to show that you are someone who doesn't follow through to what they say they are going to do. And subsequently, you start doubting yourself. Even the little things you say you are going to do, internally you start doubting yourself if you're capable of doing those things, because you have created a lot of evidence, and those evidence have crafted a story about yourself that you're someone that doesn't follow through on what you want to do. Stephen goes further to say that everything you do, with or without an audience, provides evidence to you about who you are and what you are capable of. And I, for one, I used to be a victim of this, where I told myself, well, it's just 30 minutes, it doesn't matter, or it's just 10 minutes, it doesn't matter, it's not going to affect anything. But I lied to myself. I realized that that was a lie, because everything matters. The same discipline and accountability it takes for you to make up your bed every morning is the same discipline and accountability it takes for you to tidy up your whole house. And that's the same discipline and accountability it takes for you to show up at your job site every day. It's the same accountability and discipline it takes for you to do anything in a proper way. For the little things you do to the big things you do, it's the same accountability and discipline. In a nutshell, here's the cycle that controls your self-story. What we believe about ourselves create our thoughts and feelings. These thoughts and feelings determine our actions. And these actions create our evidence, which in turn enhances our self-story, and the cycle continues. So my take on this is everything matters. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope this video has been helpful to you. And also don't forget to subscribe, like and share as well. Thank you very much.